Humans are creatures who tell stories about themselves and then believe those stories as if they were fate. If everything we think of as me, name, place, gender, beliefs, morals, purpose is ultimately the product of evolutionary coincidences, social bargains, and collective imagination, what remains when we peel those layers away one by one? Especially when we know Homo sapiens were not the first humans and may not be the last. When what seems like bedrock truth stands only because many people agree to it. If myth, religion, the state, the corporation, even money are imagined structures sustained by shared belief, where is the line between a civilization and a dream that's gone on too long? This book does not narrate history as a chain of events but holds up a warped mirror, reflecting the present through overlapping layers of time. You don't need the armor of optimism or a ready-made value system. You only need the courage to ask questions, even if the answers bring a lucid kind of unease, clarity without comfort. Our journey does not begin with the birth of the universe, but at the moment a small animal decided it was the center of everything, and kept making and then shattering worlds of its own making. The cognitive revolution is the sharp bend in the road, not because of fire or sharper stone tools, but because language took a leap, from a tool for describing reality to a machine for weaving what had never existed. About 70,000 years ago, Sapiens stopped merely speaking about the world and together invented a second one, the world of stories. From then on, human history was written not only in stone but with imagination. Before Sapiens, several cousins shared the planet. Neanderthals in Europe, Erectus in Asia, other archaic humans on remote islands. Few would have guessed that the small, not especially brawny, not uniquely big-brained ones would be the last to endure. The secret lay not in muscle or cranial volume, but in the power to imagine, transmit, and converge. 10 monkeys can keep the peace in a troop. Cram 100 into a theater and you get chaos. Sapiens can coordinate in their thousands so long as they trust the same story. A god, an ancestor, even a joint stock company. The strength is not in recounting the past, but in convincing multitudes to believe in what is not yet there. Without myth, there is no state. Without the state, there is no money. The force of Rome, the staying power of Islam, the aura of a technology brand, the value of the dollar, all are products of stories believed by many at once. That is why sapiens are extraordinarily adaptable. They can work with strangers, build complex societies, and change convictions overnight, without waiting for biological evolution to catch up. As humans left Africa, they altered every ecosystem they touched. They burned forests, hunted, drove megafauna to extinction, then justified the new order with tales of ancestors bequeathing the land. We should not romanticize foragers, they too killed and scorched. Yet they lived in a reality where belief in daily life braided tightly. Gods and animals shared the same paths. What binds millions of people is not DNA, but narrative. Borders, religion, stock exchanges, none exists as hard physical fact. They exist because we believe. When belief wavers, empires collapse. Sapiens are moved less by naked truth than by a willingness to treat fictions as if they were facts. That is where every story begins, and how power spreads. Language did more than warn, "There's a lion in the grass." It let us say, "That lion is the ancestor's spirit." If we offer tribute, our children will be safe. Fabrication ceased to be mere deceit. It became a social pillar. Gossip became a force. Who can be trusted, who to avoid. The original campfire social network that boosted survival. Those who spun compelling tales won more allies, more mates, and more descendants, propagating both genes and stories. The real inflection point is the durable shared imaginary. A sheet of cellulose is only paper, but if a community agrees it is money, it flows like blood through an economy. No monkey will trade a banana for a note promising 5 bananas next week. Sapiens do this every day. By believing together, we built tribes, faiths, empires, vast engines of cooperation. This capacity opened a vault of collective memory, story, symbol, ritual, myth. As group size outgrew the Yarza 150 relationships a brain can track, symbols became the social hard drive. Sacred poles, sun disks, cave art, storage devices for feeling and knowledge before writing. Imagination let humans anticipate consequences, plan, read drought in a crack of soil, and tell a persuasive story that moves a whole band to act before disaster hits. From there emerged the administrators of meaning. Shamans, storytellers, keepers of memory, neither hunting nor hoeing, tasked with maintaining the community's mental operating system. Art arose as a compression technology. Paint the deer so descendants recall its migration. Carve the sun so the planting calendar stays in sync. The story that helps most becomes the map. Those who weave sky, earth, and daily bread into one narrative win trust. But a story strong enough can also kill. A group convinced it is chosen may annihilate those who don't share its myth. Sapiens have driven many extinctions, not from innate evil, but because myth-fueled cooperation enables large-scale violence. Where, then, is truth? In the Sapiens world, true and false are not clean opposites. Invisible things, we believe, rights, honor, nation, govern material life with startling force. Matter is the foundation. Symbols design the house that sits upon it. A flag is cloth, yet the meaning stitched into it is weighty enough to die for. A 6-year-old already draws sharp lines, us-them loyal traitor, after absorbing the tribe's symbolic map. The same power enables unprecedented cooperation, while exposing us to harms born of our own imagination. Wars over sacred interpretations, fasting for taboos, sacrificing generations to untested ideals. Modern order, states, law, corporations, constitutions, NGOs, stands on concepts you cannot touch. Ask, where is Company X? It is not a building, not a CEO, not a product. Any part can change while Company X persists as coordinated belief and action. A banknote becomes scrap when trust collapses. Logos, coats of arms, crosses, crescents. These are the spiritual pillars holding up social architecture. Because we can tell, believe, and coordinate with agility, we accelerate world building. And for the same reason, whoever controls the story controls society. From prophecies to nightly news, from folk songs to ad campaigns, this is symbolic power. Unlike insects bound to genetic scripts, sapiens enjoy a privilege. We can pause and ask, why do we believe this? Then rewrite the tale. Each time we dare to doubt, history bends in a new direction. The agricultural revolution, the promise of plenty and the invisible trap about 10 millennia ago, along the fertile belt from the Near East to the Indian subcontinent. A few groups realized, put seeds in the ground, wait for the right cadence of rain and sun, and you can harvest. They stayed put, turned tents into houses, larders into granaries. On the surface, this was an escape from the precarious life of hunting and gathering. In truth, it was a trade of freedom for the calendar of seasons. Previously, foragers needed very little. A few tools, keen knowledge of terrain, a nimble band. When a patch ran out, they moved on. Once seeds were planted, humans became tethered to a plot of land, to the crop's endless demands: irrigate, weed, scare birds, fight pests. Along with seed came the idea of property. Whose field, whose water, whose storehouse? Where wealth appears, inequality follows. Social order hardens into a pyramid. Farming did not necessarily make people healthier. Remains suggest early farmers were shorter, sicker, and shorter-lived than nomads. Diets narrowed around a few grains. Dense settlements incubated disease. Even so, they could not go back. More food swelled population. Then more people demanded more food. The demographic trap snapped shut. When drought hit, old soils were spent and new soils taken. Flexibility vanished. Wars over land, water, and grain flared. Communities reorganized. Some plowed, some stood guard, some kept the granary, some collected levies. Classes and proto-governments emerged. Whoever controlled seed, land, and storage controlled people. To make this order feel natural, it needed a legitimating story. Gods granting land, ancestors pioneering. Everyone has their lot. Belief often sufficed to keep people in place. Surplus did not abolish scarcity. It moved scarcity into the hands of those who held the keys. The granary became a symbol of power. To coordinate strangers at scale, society needed new infrastructure: taxation, ledgers, officials, laws. And a pivotal invention arrived: writing. At first, not for verse, but for grain accounting. Who owes what, which plot belongs to whom. Literacy conferred advantage and became the arm of authority. The many spun on inside the mill of subsistence. Agriculture bent our sense of time and space. For hunters and gatherers, time flowed with weather. No clocks, no deadlines. With cultivation, the year was boxed into the calendar. Sowing, reaping, storing. A few days late could be disaster. The calendar became an invisible discipline. Miss your season and you offend the village and the gods. Space was bounded into territory. Every meter surveyed, staked, named. Morality pivoted around mine. Children learned early, don't touch what isn't yours. The domestication of animals added another rung. Oxen pulling plows, sheep for wool, horses for haulage, dogs for watch. Companions turned into means of production. Humans shifted from one species in an ecosystem to the contractor of nature. Forests into fields, rivers dammed, mountains quarried. Populations ballooned. Families had many children to weather plague, famine, war. Gender roles were reset. Men worked fields and fought. Women bore and raised children. Custom, ritual, and at times violence legitimized inequality. Coercion grew alongside a blossoming of symbols. As communities exceeded the limits of face-to-face memory, rituals, symbols, and myths became the hard drives of shared memory. Temples, steles, and idols soothed the narrowness of agrarian life while erecting walls of meaning. From flexible local beliefs, religion shifted into organized forms, systems of God's law right, with a professional priesthood. Sacred texts turned taboos into statutes. Disobedience was not only illegal but blasphemous. Even so, the vagrant memory did not vanish. At the village edge, by the hearth, under star-heavy nights, people still wondered, is this really the only way to live? Do the gods always side with those who hold the keys? Poets, sages, prophets, who neither plowed nor guarded stores, sowed seeds of reflection. Through such hairline cracks, society learned to question the very story it inhabited. Cities rose as the engine rooms of the new order. Smiths, merchants, slaves, priests, magistrates jostled along the same street. There, public and private split into view. The self was defined by job, status, and property, things unknown to the hunting band. Human behavior became coded on paper, contracts, receipts, verdicts. Fault was no longer weighed by communal memory but by cold documents. Inside the pyramid, critical thought sprouted. What is happiness? What is justice? Who authored this order? Such questions did not smash temples, but they reoriented the gaze of those at the base. From then on, humans were not only cultivators but architects of meaning. Here lies the core paradox of this revolution. It began with serving a plant, and ended by turning the gaze inward. Humans traded agility for stability, wildness for order, today for a scheduled tomorrow. In return, they gained granaries, walls, script, law. At the same time, they carried scar memory of a time before mine, a lingering echo that forces every system to leave room for doubt. In sum, the agricultural revolution did more than swap survival tools. It re-engineered minds and society, property and hierarchy, calendars and deadlines, territory and borders, writing and administration, organized religion and legitimizing myth. It built granaries and forged shackles. Yet within the prison of rice and wheat, humans learned to ask questions, opening a path of inquiry for the chapters of history that followed. The unification of humankind. 3 major poles and the cost of togetherness. Humans once lived in countless small groups, speaking different mythic languages. Gradually, distant communities began to share common frames of meaning and to cooperate at unprecedented scale. That unification did not arise from biological instinct, but from 3 symbolic engines: money, empire, and universal religion. They interwove to build a shared world, while opening new fissures inside each person. Money, a trust you can carry anywhere. Money isn't gold or paper. It is consensus that this thing trades for anything. Thanks to money, a craftsperson can accept silver instead of grain. A soldier paid in coins can buy bread in a land he has never seen. Money turns difference into comparables, folding countless values into a single scale so strangers can transact as if they had met. But once money becomes the common standard, it also quietly resets dignity. What sells is worthy. Whoever earns most is successful. A tool of exchange slides into a moral system. Right-wrong yields to profit-loss. Cohesion grows while compassion risks wearing thin. Empire, the power of symbols and paperwork. Empires do not rule by sword alone. They run on symbols, banners, era names, medals, written law, maps, taxation, armies, and especially administration. From the center, orders reach every frontier. From the villages, data returns to the registry. Persons, fields, produce, cases. An empire folds local gods into a larger order. or replaces them with the center's deity. It labels subjects, citizen, slave, outsider. Once names and labels are believed, a life can be decided by a few lines in a ledger. In return, an empire brings infrastructure, roads, markets, statutes, that let strangers live under one symbolic roof, while also turning individuals into units of statistics. Universal religion, communities of people who never met, unlike local cults. Religions such as Buddhism, Christianity, Islam speak of truths for everyone, everywhere. They craft an ethic beyond the tribe, suffering, salvation, judgment, karma, creating cross-border kinship. Two believers can call each other brother, sister, despite language or color. But every inside comes with an outside. Believers versus heretics, orthodoxy versus heterodoxy. Internal unity can ignite violence against the other. Yet these universal faiths also plant the seed of humanity as a whole. All people possess souls, value, beyond bloodlines or geography. The nested triad, capital, politics, belief, and practice. The three forces synergize. Money funds empire. Empire protects religion and markets. Religion legitimizes order. Later, science, to be covered next, joins the machine, forming the triangle of science, capital, power, that can shape rather than merely describe the world. The result is a global supply web. Coffee here hangs on prices there. A glitch in a financial hub can leave children half a world away hungry. Unified infrastructure, harmonized hearts, we link up via currency, law, faith, and technology. Yet empathy does not come automatically. One may transact with hundreds a day while truly knowing no one. Meanwhile, datafication renders life into spreadsheets. Productivity, credit score, happiness index. What cannot be measured is pushed to the margins. As algorithms become gatekeepers, they optimize for clicks, not sorrow. They guess what you'll tap, not what you need. Lonely in a crowd becomes a common feeling. The denser the unifying infrastructure, the wider the inner distance can grow. New identities in the shared mesh. Under agriculture, the self was defined by land and kin. Under city empire, by occupation, status, paperwork. In the network age, the self turns into a personal brand. Likes follows engagement. Expression expands, yet dependence on the gaze of others becomes sharper than ever. Unification thus feels like layering coats, each one warmer, each one further from skin. We may share money, networks, laws, while the question, who am I amid all this, rings louder. The bright side remains. For all its tensions, unification has yielded wider horizons. Human rights, rule of law, international cooperation, cross-border relief. People who never meet can still act together against famine, disease, disaster. Such feats rely on shared imaginative structures, the social software humans co-write. The final knot. Who authors the common story? Because every unified order stands on shared belief, the decisive question is who controls the story. Burning a flag doesn't scorch the cloth. It strikes the meaning that props up a community. As technology lets everyone become a publisher, the common world splinters into fractured truths. The same event spawns endless versions, with no umpire all accept. In sum, the unification of humankind widens the circle of us through money, empire, religion, then adds the global market and, soon enough, science technology. It enables cooperation at planetary scale, while surfacing crises of meaning and identity. From here, history is poised to enter. The scientific revolution, where humans not only share stories about the world, but possess methods to verify and remake that world. Would you like me to go on? The scientific revolution, when not knowing becomes power. Strange starting point. Admitting ignorance, the great turn of the past few centuries did not begin with a new creed, but with the words, I don't know. From there arose a new stance. Instead of leaning on scripture or authority, we ask questions, form hypotheses, test, and correct. Science becomes a disciplined way of storytelling. Say little, check a lot, and be ready to change when the evidence changes. Tools of doubt, observation, measurement, mathematics, telescopes, microscopes, clocks, maps, calculations are not mere gadgets. They are pipelines that channel reality into letters and numbers. When the world is measured, it can be compared, repeated, predicted. From planetary motion to blood flow, from microbes to electricity, the cosmos appears as a system of laws we can decode. A new alliance. Science, X, capital X, power. For knowledge to grow fast, it needs money and political backing. In return, it hands technology to states and merchants. This three-way alliance forms a reinforcing loop. Discovery, application, profit power, stronger investment, greater discovery. The double outcome, ships, guns, medicines, printing presses, instruments, pave the way for overseas empires and a global trading web. The credit creed and the promise of growth, unlike peasant societies that live off the past, the new world bets on the future. Credit blooms thanks to the belief that tomorrow will be richer than today. Firms borrow to expand. Governments issue debt to build infrastructure. Science promises new technologies to pay those debts. Growth becomes a moral yardstick. If it scales up, it makes sense. From experiment to steam engine, industrialization, knowledge no longer serves only to understand. It restructures life. Steam engines, internal combustion, power looms, railways, electricity. Multiply human force, igniting production, urbanization, the discipline of the clock. Alongside rises consumerism. The system both manufactures goods and teaches us to crave them. Billboards, not family trees, become the daily map of meaning. The modern state and the coded market population registries, standards of measure, taxation, mass schooling, conscription, turn citizens into data units that can be governed and mobilized. Markets, now grounded in contracts, insurance, joint stock companies, seep into every decision, from the price of grain to the price of time. The new religions of modernity, branches of humanism, as old authorities recede, a family of ideas advances. The human becomes the source of legitimacy. Liberal humanism, the individual and their choices are supreme. Social humanism, community justice is the compass. Evolutionary technological humanism, upgrade humanity through science. Different as they are, they share the conviction that meaning springs from humans, not the heavens. Science touches life and consciousness. Biology unlocks cells, microbes, genes. Medicine stretches lifespan. Chemical agriculture feeds crowds. Information technology renders behavior into data. A sharp question follows. If consciousness can be described as patterns of neural activation, what is the self? If genes can be edited, where do we draw the boundaries of the human? 9. The dark side of growth. Ecosystems and meaning output rises and comforts thicken, but the price is climate stress, biodiversity loss, resource depletion, along with inner fragmentation. There is more we can do than ever, yet what we ought to do grows hazier. Science grants capability, not purpose. Purposes remain the work of ethics, culture, and shared stories. A future ajar, from Homo sapiens to the post-human project. Implants, AI, synthetic biology, brain-machine interfaces. Shift the question from how we live to who we will be. If capabilities outrun the human mold, moral, legal, and political rules must be rewritten. And once again, the decisive factor is not only the laboratory but the story humanity chooses to believe about itself. Conclusion. The scientific revolution turns not knowing into the engine of progress, wades capital and power, and remakes the material world and social order. It frees us from superstition, yet does not answer the riddle of meaning. From here we approach a final fork. Use our new capacities to expand our humanity or unwittingly leave it behind.